Okay, what if I told you that the biggest mistake you're making is not in the way that you're training, but in the way that you set your goals? How do you know how fast to pace or to set off in a half marathon or a marathon? If you've been running consistently, making progress and hitting new personal bests, you might be capable of much more than you think. In this video, I'm going to show you how to set ambitious yet realistic goals for your next half marathon and how to pace it perfectly to surprise yourself at the finish line. I'm Lee Grantham, a coach and professional ultra runner who went from running a marathon in 3 hours and 25 minutes to running 11 months later a marathon in 2 hours and 37 minutes, because instead of following the natural next step of running a sub 3 hour marathon, I wanted to run as fast as I possibly could. I knew I was capable of more. And if you think you're capable of achieving way more with your running and want guidance from a professional, please get in contact by clicking the link in the description and booking a performance strategy call with me. So this is from Stephen in Canada. I ran an all-out full marathon in October 2024 in 1 hour 47. Just ran a marathon and crossed the halfway line in 1 hour 46. And then he's gone on to explain that the marathon course was way tougher and the conditions were tougher. I plan on running a half marathon on May the 4th, which is a flat course. What should my goal half marathon time be? I will have 9 weeks of prep after taking this week, next week off to recover, which is really sensible. And so he responded, he started running in July 2024, so he's been running for 6 or 7 months. 14-week half marathon prep, and then a 16-week prep for the marathon, which went up in volume, and also up in the long runs. In the marathon race, he hit the wall at 29K, not because he didn't have the cardio, but because his legs started to cramp. He'd been running a lot indoors in the Canadian winter, which is brutal. And also there's no leg strength training there and no hill training. So this is absolutely awesome from Stephen. He's only been training 6 or 7 months and already he's done a half marathon and done that pretty methodically, the training, and then pivoted to a full marathon and gone through halfway quicker, a minute quicker, and feeling comfortable than he did in his half marathon personal best. For me, this is the perfect case of you've done so much in 6 months and now you're ready to tackle another half marathon, and already you're aiming high, already you're looking for the answers. Okay, so let's break this down so we can make sense of it. 6 months ago, you started running. You've been running for 6 months. And in that time, you've done a half marathon and attempted a full marathon. 3 months ago, in October, you ran 107 minutes for the half marathon. And just 3 days ago, you ran 106 minutes, so faster for that first half, and you thought you had another half of the marathon to go. Plus, the course was more difficult, so it's a harder half marathon to do, and although it's not gone perfectly for you, you had your hat in the ring, which is the main thing. You've now got 9 weeks, and you've sensibly taken this week off, and you're going to take next week off, then 9 weeks to prepare for your next half marathon. You want to know what pace to go out at. And that pacing starts with your training. So what I would say is if you can get to halfway, thinking you've got another half marathon to go in 1 hour 46 or 106 minutes, I'd say it's pretty comfortable for you to run 140 already. So you've already ticked that box as far as I'm concerned. So I wouldn't want to aim for something that I know that I'm already capable of, even if I haven't done it yet. And some people will argue about that, but let them bother about that. And you're Canadian, so you're talking in kilometers, which even for a Brit makes way more sense. So what we're trying to do here is, if you look at 140 for the half marathon, that's 445 per kilometer. 135 would be 430 per kilometer, and 130 would be 415 per kilometer, which is a 3 hour marathon. What I'd suggest here, you've got 9 weeks to train for this, specifically towards going out at 90 minutes. You've improved massively in 6 months. And I guess that a lot of that is you figuring it out for yourself on the internet, patching things together like a training plan. And how hard should I be running these runs? How hard? Have you done any intervals? We don't know all of this, but based on how methodical that you've written that question, I would probably guess that there's some kind of structure in there, but we'd have to have a chat about that. What I would do, despite conventional wisdom probably saying you should go for 135 or 140 to 135, and that would be within your reach. And therefore you can stay safe And you can hit that and feel as if you've achieved something and then move forward, and maybe next year you could aim for 135 to 130, and gradually within 5 years, maybe you're at 110 or 115. That's how conventional thinking works, but you're an individual. And so I think that given the progress you've made so far, what I would be doing is taking that 100 minutes, which I think you've already hit at 1 hour 40, and trying to improve 10% in just 9 weeks. Now, how is that even possible? Like, I get that all the time. How is it even possible? And then we start and we look under the bonnet as to what you're actually doing on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, and for the training schedule. And all of a sudden, there's just a few things that we move around and you're a completely different runner. So maybe it's to do with the interval session, or maybe it's to do with the threshold run that you're doing, or maybe when you go out there and you're running those 18, 19 kilometer runs or 21 kilometer runs up to 30 kilometers, maybe that's all long, slow distance. And maybe that's the best thing for you so far. But once we start to get specific, because we're now trying to go much faster, we need to do something differently. And so the initial question would be, how far can you hold 4:15 per kilometer for? I'm willing to guess that you could probably hold that for almost 5 kilometers, maybe even a little bit more. But I'm also willing to guess that you've not attempted that because you've been so focused on the half marathon and marathon, and so that area of your game is underdeveloped and an area of opportunity for us to tap into. So what I would be aiming for if I was your coach, or if I was you, is 90 minutes for half marathon. And what that would look like is me getting comfortable at moving over the ground at 4:15 per kilometer. So I'd want to get to a point in your training within 5 to 7 weeks where you can do 8 to 10 times 1 kilometer with a minute rest at either 4:15 per kilometer or faster. I'd also want to get to a point where I could do a specific long run. It doesn't need to be so long. It can be 15 to 18 kilometers, and that can look something like 6 kilometers, 6 kilometers, and 6 kilometers, with those final 6 kilometers at half marathon intended race pace, 4:15 per kilometer. The point I'm trying to make here is we often follow the path of what everybody else has chosen, and therefore we move forward gradually, which is great, but kind of stops us from getting towards our potential. Now, you're putting in all this work, your consistency, your work ethic and discipline is already there, and you're a brand new runner. You've been running for 6 months, and already you've done great things. Often on this channel, I talk about the simple elements of the running game, getting faster in your interval sessions, going longer and being more specific in your long runs. There's 8 to 10 different areas, minimum 8 to 10 different areas, that if you move them up, they will each have a knock-on effect on another area of your game. And think about how that exponentially moves you forward. Let's just look at 4 of those areas: recovery runs, easy runs, interval sessions, long runs, and weight training. Mark yourself out of 10. And let me know, honestly, in the comments, if you feel like you cannot get 2.5% better in each one of those 4 fields. And now let's say, what about if I improve my weight training? What effect is that gonna have on my interval training? And therefore, can I move my interval training forward by more than 2.5%? And if my interval training is improving, and that's having a knock-on the specific segments within my long run, is that going to have more than a 2.5% effect? Is it going to move me forward more than 2.5%? We're not looking at marginal gains here, but if you look at every single aspect of your running game that you can improve, can you find 10%? I don't care whether you've been running for 6 months or whether you've been running for 6 years, the answer is 99% likely to be a yes. 6 months you've been training, already 146, 147 for the half marathon. You're disappointed, no doubt, with that marathon performance. You want to go back and correct that at some point, but now you want to run that faster half marathon. You're capable of so much more. You just need to do the right things well. And the real magic is, yes, doing the right things well, but doing them consistently and having that discipline and that appreciation for delayed gratification, that it's not going to happen overnight. In 2 weeks, you're not going to be a faster runner, but you've already got that in abundance. You're going to plan 9 weeks specific training, of which we can probably squeeze out 7.5 weeks specific training towards you running 90 minutes. And although that seems like a big target, I'm asking you to go 10% quicker, which is reasonable because so far in your 6-month running journey, you're just scratching the surface. So let's recap. First of all, you're doing brilliantly. You've been running for 6 months or just over. You've done a marathon already and you've done a half marathon. And the best thing about this is very quickly in your running journey, you've hit that wall and you felt what that feels like. And so you want to correct it because you don't want to have that feeling again. That is powerful alone. You're also self-aware enough to know that there are elements of your game that need improving and you're reaching out for help. Don't do this that a lot of runners do. Don't put your time into a calculator online and come out with 140 or 142. That's the logical next step for you to take. Don't take the logical next step. Take the best step for you as an individual.